Hello, and welcome to the next retrospective kind of video. After having done one for gaming itself, Mario, Zelda, and Metroid. Now, for the series, well, that basically introduced me to RPGs. Granted, I had played games like Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 that had the grinding, kill enemies for a certain amount of experience, collect those points, and a certain amount of points gained gets you a level up that raises stats. The whole grinding aspect of RPGs was nothing new. I'd played Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 that had that same thing, but yeah. In August of 1989, as soon as the thing captured, there we go. The first Dragon Quest game, well, Dragon Warrior as they'd be called in America for the longest time to avoid copyright issues with some other company that had a tabletop RPG kind of like Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering called Dragon Quest, one word, Dragon Quest. Personally though, for one, I never thought I'd actually get used to calling the series Dragon Quest after, 15, 16 years of Dragon Warrior. Never thought I'd actually adjust to calling them Dragon Quest games. Secondly, while I have done what I thought was going to be impossible for myself, I still think Dragon Warrior sounds better. I don't know, maybe just nostalgia speaking, but and of course, by the way, as you probably realized by now, these videos aren't supposed to be like a full, drawn-out history of the franchises from a production standpoint. Just my memories of having played these games as they came out, if I have. Which is why the Mario video is so much shorter than the Zelda one, because I've only played the first 4 mainline Mario games, a couple of the RPG games, and Odyssey. So obviously, if I haven't played a game, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I really don't have anything to add. So, yeah. Anyway, with that out of the way. Of course, this one as well, I already did a full playthrough of for my channel, so again, there's not much more I could add to this about this game that I haven't already said there. Other than could still remember, was introduced to this game from a friend, the same friend who introduced me to Zelda a year earlier. Comes up one day, oh, so you like that game Zelda 2, which of course he didn't. He was one of the first people I met that didn't like Zelda 2, but yeah, you like that game Zelda 2, don't you, with all that grinding? Well, here, you'll like this game. Puts it in the NES and hands me the box art. I look at the box art, that weird looking picture of a dragon, and thinking, okay, well, you were right about Zelda, so I'll take your word for it on this game. Of course, there were no quests because it was a brand new cartridge. Begin a game, name your file, just like Zelda. So this part was nothing new. I'd played Zelda and Zelda 2 already, so. Okay. We have text right from the beginning of the game. You didn't have that in Zelda. You could talk to people in the villages, but yeah. And the menu-based obsession here does get a little bit ridiculous. Especially when you consider all of the newer games, you just go up to it and hit the A button. But, here, everything is menu-based. Oh well. For the time, I guess it was more acceptable. I mean, come on, this is Dragon Warrior 1 we're talking about here, often cited as the grandfather of the JRPG. The game that, if urban legends and stuff like that are to be believed, Square, the other half of today's Square Enix, was heavily influenced by this game when it came to making their own flagship franchise, Final Fantasy. This and Dungeons and Dragons games, but again, so says the urban legends. I don't know how much of that is actually true, so don't necessarily quote me on that. It's just something I've heard time and time again. Could just be fan gossip for all I know. Coincidence. Yeah, even going downstairs is menu based here. Buying weapons and armor. Well, that, at this point in time, August, September 1989, was kind of a new concept, at least for me. I mean, you had weapon upgrades in Castlevania 2, but you didn't upgrade your armor. You did that through grinding for experience levels. That's what basically armor upgrades without actually having armor, but in Zelda, the blue tunic, I mean, you bought that. You didn't have to, well, actually, I guess you probably had to grind for the rupees unless you knew where all those, it's a secret to everybody, free rupee moblin hideouts were. Then you didn't necessarily have to grind for rupees. Of course, everything automatically equips. So, of course, talk to people to get little tips and hints and clues on what, which again was really nothing new. Zelda 2 had that, so did Castlevania 2, although in Castlevania 2 a lot of stuff they said was bunk and bogus and best to be ignored anyways. At least some of them said stuff useful, sort of, minimally. So yeah. Well, this was the point to all this being, while this was technically the first RPG I had played, some of the other ones I had played previously kind of set the stage for this, so to speak. I wasn't totally, alien to the concept of grinding or talking to people for clues since I played Zelda 2. Otherwise, a game like this, back at that point in time, I might have been like, okay, what the heck am I doing here? Of course, that having been said, as I pointed out in my playthrough of this game for the channel earlier this year, if you don't like heavy grinding, I would recommend either skipping this game in general entirely or playing the Switch version of the game where all of the enemies give you more golden experience, drastically reducing your grinding time. But if you're truly nostalgic and have a lot of time to waste to level grind, then by all means, the NES original, if you can find a copy of it. Since I don't think it's ever been re-released, not that I'm aware of anyway. I mean, I was always hoping they'd release it on the 3DS Virtual Console, but no. Yeah. Anyways, love this game. It's rather simplistic by today's terms, yes. Mostly grinding with just a slight shred of gameplay mechanics of dungeons and whatnot involved. Gather 3 items, exchange them for one other item, use that item to get to the final area. Yes. Very minimal gameplay other than grinding. so it is rather simplistic by today's standards, but hey, you had to start somewhere. I mean, people talk about how massive the first Zelda game's world map was for the time. Well, this game's world map makes Zelda's look like a little toothpick. Of course, the second Dragon Quest game was even bigger, but okay, come on, game. No? Fine. Moving on then. Oh, excuse me. Released in Japan in 1987. Released here in North America in September of 1990. Oh boy, where do I start with this one? Started playing this one in October of 1990, just after having completed the first one and, well, still in the process of completing the first Final Fantasy game. And as I said in my playthrough of the game earlier this year, that first playthrough was so abysmal that I ended up hating just the mere mention of this game for over 3 decades to come. Until just earlier this year. Well, actually, a little earlier than that, thanks to the Switch remake, fixing a lot of the issues that made me want to curse at the top of my lungs when playing this game back in 1991. So I say, if I was doing this video, this very same video that I am right now, if I was doing this even just 5 months ago, I would have nothing but profanities for this original version of the game. Luckily, I wasn't. Luckily, I'm doing it now where I've had a chance to simmer down and actually give the original version of the game another shot, so to speak. Now, while the original version ain't as good as the Switch remake, it's not totally abysmal either. My problem, like I said many a times during that playthrough, is that back in those days, I had the bad habit of running from too many random battles and either dying, trying, or dying, getting to end game areas too under-leveled and paying the price for that with how fast my party got wiped out by green dragons, golden bat boons, and Bull Wong, whatever the frick a Bull Wong is supposed to be. Cursing every dirty word you could possibly imagine, with some of my own profanities thrown in for good measure. Swearing that I'd never touch this game again as long as I shall live. Obviously, I broke those vows. Of course, like I said in my playthrough of the game, this beginning is kind of weird in the regards that usually Nintendo of America were the ones that would censor this kind of stuff. Usually it used to be the Japanese version of the game had a more detailed beginning, but the American version of the game butchered that beginning to a laughingstock version of it. But here, it's just the other way around. This was added to the American version of the game, believe it or not. The Japanese version starts with the lone survivor of the onslaught we're about to see, making his way to Middenhall Castle. This whole sequence of a king being brutally murdered in front of his own daughter was added to the American. Again, it's just kind of weird. Nintendo of America was usually the ones that censored that kind of stuff out of the Japanese original. Here it's the other way around. They added it where the Japanese original didn't have. Would it be too much to ask if we could make up our minds, Nintendo of America? Just a little? Are we going to censor this kind of stuff? Or are we going to add it when originally it wasn't even there to be censored? Just saying. A little consistency would have been nice. Anyways, attempted comedy aside, needless to say, my initial playthrough of this game did not end well. And again, I swore to myself I'd never touch the game again. Obviously, I haven't kept that. I mean, I did for 3 decades, but of course, I still say I have Twitch streamer T Kobold 43 to thank for that. While watching one of his Dragon Quest streams, we were talking about it. I don't remember exactly what he said, but something he said got me thinking about, about the fact that maybe I have my own playthrough style. Maybe I was the reason the game sucks. I did something wrong, or I could have fought more battles. Got me thinking about that kind of stuff. Not more than a month later, I did my playthrough of the game. See what I mean? And again, this was added to the American version of the game. Not cut out from the Japanese. A little consistency, please. Nintendo of America, please. You know that dreaded word, consistency? Well, actually, no, you probably don't know the meaning of that word, but yeah. Anyways. Yeah. This, right around here somewhere, is where the Japanese version of the game begins. And where this... Well, actually, wait a minute. Of course, as you later find out, this world map is much larger than even the first game's was. Because Elfgard, as it was called in Dragon Warrior 1, is just a small little continent in the middle of this game's massive world map. Yeah. Plus, you have a party in this game, whereas it's just one person fighting one enemy at a time in the first game. Problem was, the party members, having played the original version again, the party wasn't as bad as I had thought. It was my way of playing the game, running from too many battles that made the party as bad as I remember them being. But still, that having been said and acknowledged, the Prince of Canak maxes out at level 45 here in the original. The Princess of Moonbrook maxes out at experience level 35, where in the Switch version of the game, all 3 party members max out at level 50. Plus, in the Switch version of the game, both the Princess and the Prince characters have the Kazing spell, whereas in this version of the game, only one of them, I forget which one, but only one of them has it. So yeah, there are ways the Switch version of the game makes the game a little more bearable. And yes, by the way, like I said in my playthrough of the game, I am aware that there was both a Game Boy Color remake of the game and a Super Nintendo remake of the game. Well, one, the Super Nintendo remake, I don't think ever made its way stateside. I think that was Japanese only. And 2, I never played the Game Boy Color. By the way, I meant Game Boy Color, not Game Boy Advance. I never played the Game Boy Color version, so yeah. Again, I can only talk about the game if I've played them. Otherwise, what's the point? Another like I pointed out in my playthrough of the game, another thing I noticed that I like about the Switch version of the game. Here, it tells you, since it's pretty much decided at random, it tells you what the name of the Princess of Moonbrook and the Prince of Cannock, what their names are going to be. And gives you a chance to change them if you want to add whatever name you want them to have, instead of whatever name the game decides they're going to have. Little extra customization of sorts that the original doesn't have. It's a small, minor thing, but still, it does, rather than just taking whatever name the game gives them and liking it. Anyways, also, like I said in my playthrough of the game, you're the hero, destined to save the entire world. How do they encourage you and try and help you on your world-saving quest? By giving you $50. Hardly enough to even buy a couple medical herbs. Gee, thanks. You want me to save all of humanity with $50. I ought to find a way to leave this country and let you guys suffer, cheapskates. $50. Well, in this version of the game, they don't have it. In the Switch version of the game, they have a leather shield that's available, or a leather helmet, one of the two that's available here for like $90. I was just going to comedically say, see, I can't even buy this shield here with my $50 you so generously gave me. Not. But it's not even in this version of the game, so damn it, they ruined my joke. Anyways. Dragon Warrior 3, a game I just finished recording videos of for my YouTube channel. Haven't uploaded them all yet, but yeah. This game came out in North America in March 1992. I didn't play this game right away because the following month came another game on the Super Nintendo, a little game called A Link to the Past. So, yeah, guess what game got the bulk of my attention? Certainly not this game. As good as this game is, I mean, come on. If you're gonna actually ask me to decide between this game and A Link to the Past, well, I'm sorry, but the Zelda game wins out. Not just any Zelda game, but that, yeah, one of the better Zelda games. I mean, I like this game, again, don't get me wrong, but not that much. So yeah. Besides that, the other reason I didn't play this game right away when it first came out is part 2, my first playthrough of it, had left such a bad impression on me that I pretty much highly considered even just flipping the middle finger, figuratively speaking, to the entire franchise. Like, frick you. If your games, the rest of your games are going to be as bad as part 2 was, screw you and your Dragon Quest games. Or Dragon Warrior games is what I would have said back then, but yeah. But I'd had such a fun time playing and replaying and replaying and replaying and replaying and replaying part 1 that I figured I'd at least rent this game and see if it was any good, and boy, am I glad I did. Because, well, where the second game had the Princess of Moonbrook and the Prince of Cannock, potentially useless or not as useful party members. This game, you actually got to choose your party members, their strengths and attributes by job classes. Black magic using mages, white magic using priests, soldiers, tanks, and your party was whatever you made it, not what the game decided to give you. Yeah. So yeah, a definitive plus right there for not just this game or Dragon Quest in general, but any RPG. Don't stick me with useless characters like Edward the Bard, Final Fantasy IV, and expect me to like your game. Of course, like I said, just having completed recording a playthrough of this game. Again, not much more I could add right now that I haven't already said through the course of that playthrough, but one of the, if not the first game to have the changeable job class mechanic. Noting that this game came out in 1988 in Japan. Final Fantasy III, the game sometimes erroneously credited for that in error, didn't come out until April of 1990. Yeah. 2 years later. So, yeah. Think we got a big enough castle here? No. I want to be like my dad, I suppose, but I would not want to dive headfirst into a volcano fighting a dragon, like Dad did in that opening cutscene. No, thank you. If Dad wants to commit dragon fighting suicide, that's his problem. Of course, never mind, I wasn't going to ad-lib to that, but for one, I haven't uploaded that part of the playthrough yet, so it might therefore still be a spoiler. How much money? $50 again. Wow, these games are just so generous. They want you to save the entire world and every life on it. And how do they reward you? With $50. Gee, they're just so generous. I can just do so much with that $50. Yeah. There's just so much I can buy with that $50. Yeah. Right. I can buy the clothes. Big whoop. The club. Yeah. What is it with these games? Anyways. Of course, in Dragon Warrior 2, it was crests. There was 5 of them that you had to find to get an item that let you see past the illusions of a false castle and actually make progress in the final dungeon. And this one started the idea of orbs that would be replicated in Dragon Quest 7 and 11. Or not 7, rather 8, I meant to say. Dragon Quest 8 and 11. Yeah. Oh well, at least Dragon Quest games haven't replicated that 6 orb idea as many times as Zelda games have replicated companion characters that follow you through every step of the game, coddling you and holding your hand and coddling your rump with both hands. Midna, Fee, Eslo, Navi, middle finger. To the point of being able to smell Midna's mold from 5 states away. Twilight Princess. At least with Dragon Quest was. Granted, I've never played 10, and and I have very little memory of 6, so... So point being, at least Dragon Quest producers knew when to stop. More that could be said for Zelda. Enough said. Anyways, easily, in my opinion, the best game, Dragon Quest game on the NES. As far as best game in general on the NES, that would probably be The Legend of Zelda, first Zelda game. Anyways, of course, it wasn't the last Dragon Quest game on the NES. There would be one more. Dragon Warrior 4, released in October of 1992, about half a year after the... Why so soon, I don't know, but yeah. Of course, this would be the last Dragon Warrior Dragon Quest game to be released here in North America for 9 full years, until October of 2001. And for me personally, this would be the last one that I played even remotely close to initial release date. Pretty much to this day, for that matter. All of the remaining games in the series from this point on, I played either the remake, never the original, or I eventually played the original, making a point of doing so. Or, yeah, either way, they've been out for years. Anyways, of course, in this game's case, while the NES original is alright, until the 5th chapter, like I said many times throughout my playthrough of this game earlier this year, when you get to the 5th chapter, you lose the follow orders, battle command, and random battles get to be a nightmare. Yeah, whatever possessed them to do that, I don't know, but it sucks. Made for a very bad... Yeah. If I ever do play this game again, it'll probably be the DS remake. At least with Dragon Warrior 2, I can look back at it and say my miserable experience with it was my own fault. Things that I personally did wrong as a gamer. But with this game, I didn't program it. I'm not the one that forgot to put follow orders in the battle command tactics section. Yeah. Anyways, again, not much more I can add to this now that I haven't already said multiple times over throughout my full playthrough of the game earlier this year. Yeah. Of course. Alright, well. Released in Japan in late 92. About a month, give or take, before we in America got part 4 on the NES. In Japan, the Super Nintendo Famicom, yeah, part 5. Of course, we here in America, to this day, have never had the original outside of PC emulation. We get the DS remake, that's it. The Super Nintendo original, get yourself an emulator. Yet emulators are bad. Yeah, so is the middle finger in your face. Excuse me while I run emulator. And you only have yourself to blame. If you'd actually release this game, even on a virtual console or collection, I wouldn't have to be running this emulator now, would I? Anyways, Dragon Quest V. I didn't play this game until the early 2000s on PC emulator since it was never released here. Couldn't play it if I wanted to. I mean, the DS remake came out about 5, 6 years later. Actually, when did the DS remake come out? I'd actually have to look that up. I don't remember when the DS remake of the game came out here in the U.S. or North America, United States, and Canada. Of course, as of today, Saturday, September 24th, I'm just about to start recording videos for a playthrough of this game. So yeah, just having, like I said, just having finished recording my Dragon Warrior 3 videos. And I'll no doubt be talking about what I was just talking about earlier, how this game is still to this day not available in original form outside of emulation. Since it still bugs me. We're not supposed to use emulators, yet yeah, you get the idea. Anyways, good game, good soundtrack. Storyline wise, it's the longest game, with the story spanning multiple decades. Yeah, of course. Of course, the other thing that kind of pisses me off, excuse my language, about this whole thing, not just the fact that to this day this game has never been officially released here in America in its original form, but the reason why, initially at least, Enix, the other half of today's Square Enix, deciding that RPGs aren't selling well enough here in the days before Final Fantasy VII changed all that. RPGs aren't selling well enough here, so we're not even going to bother. Screw the North American. Yeah, screw you, Enix. Yeah. Jesus. Jesus Christ, if the other half of today's Square Enix Square themselves had thought that way, no Secret of Mana, no Chrono Trigger, no Final Fantasy VI, no Illusion of Gaia, and no cough cough final cough cough fantasy cough cough 7. Thank God Squaresoft still had the guts to keep releasing RPGs, regardless of whether that or not they were going to sell well. They still had the balls to, pardon my language, to keep trying, unlike Enix, who grew that yellow streak down their back and ran like... I mean, I love Dragon Quest games, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't even be fricking doing this video if I didn't, but it still pisses me off. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, screw you. I mean, again, with emphasis, don't get me wrong, I love Dragon Quest games. I wouldn't even be doing this video now if I didn't, but really? Again, I'm just glad Square didn't just cower away and, oh, we're only going to make our games for Japan from now on. Jesus Christ. Anyways, I have a lot more to say about this game as I do my playthrough of it in the coming weeks. So, you know, one of the best in the series and certainly the best of the two games on the Super Nintendo. The other being the next, yeah, Dragon Quest VI. Don't know when this game was released in Japan without looking it up. I only played it once on emulation, just like Part 5. Just don't remember why I never played it again. Probably it was other games I was playing at the time, or didn't like it, or a combination of the two factors. But yeah, for over 20 years, or roughly 20 years now, I haven't played the game a second time. Yeah. Of course, as the 90s ended and the new decade began, I didn't even know 5 and 6 existed. I used to when talking to friends, I used to joke about how, well, there's never going to be a fifth game. They stopped at 4. Yeah. Obviously, I was wrong, but for 9 years, there were no new games released in America. Just some remakes on the Game Boy Color. Yeah. But new games, no. At least not in America. The key words there. Yeah. I don't really have much to add about this game since I only played it briefly once and that's it. So yeah. Oops. The first Dragon Quest game to be released in North America since late '92 with Part 4. Problem was, I'd gotten so used to the idea that there was never going to be another Dragon Warrior Dragon Quest game that I didn't even know this one was released here until years later. I just stopped looking, stopped caring, basically. Figured 4 was all there was ever going to be and moved on with my life, basically put. So, yeah. Wasn't until years later that I even knew that this game existed. Then, on top of that, it was on Sony PlayStation. Yeah. I mean, I did have a Sony PlayStation for Final Fantasy VII, but by late 01, early 02, it got rid of it. Not that I wanted to, actually, but I needed extra money, and yeah. I regret having sold it, but actually, wait a minute, no, scratch that. That was my PS2 that I sold. PS1 got wrecked. Had something dropped on it. Yeah. Knocking the laser that reads the discs out of whack. Yeah. Anyways. Of course, this would be the only game in the series on the PS1. Dragon Quest VIII would be on the PS2 in 2004, 2005. It would be the first game to be released in North America on its original initial release as Dragon Quest, not Dragon Warrior, whereas even this game originally was Dragon Warrior 7. Is by the time Part 8 came out, either the company that held the copyright on Dragon Quest went out of business, they didn't care anymore, or Enix was able to buy them out. I don't know what the case may have been, but whatever reason, by 2004, they were able to call it Dragon Quest here in America. Part 8 was the first game released under that. And Part 8 was also the first game in the series to be released after the merger between Square Enix into today's Square Enix, as it's been ever since. Part 8 was the first game to be released under that as well. Of course, as for this game, I really don't have much footage for this game, gameplay-wise. Yeah. Yeah. I might have heard about it earlier than that, but I didn't actually play this game until the 3DS remake came out. In 2016. Which is probably part of the reason why to this day this original version is kind of meh. I mean, even now as I look at it to make this video, watching it with everybody else watching the video, just meh. That's all I can say. Meh. Give me the 3DS remake. I mean, I know some of the people I've talked to in Dragon Quest streams swear that this game is superior in every way. Personally, I say you're right to your opinion, my friends. Just don't expect me to agree with you. This game is inferior in every way, but that's just my opinion, so yeah, don't mind me. I mean, again, like all of my opinions, if you disagree, hey, that's you're right to your opinion. Don't mind me. It's only video games after all. It's nothing. It's not the meaning of life or anything really ultra important. Nothing to warrant getting all bent out of shape over. Start insulting people, juvenile name calling and all that crap. Not like the early days of YouTube, where people would start calling you every dirty word you could possibly imagine at the drop of a hat. What's with that flickering? No, I'm not going to tell you anything, Maribel. Yeah. Of course, eventually I will do a playthrough of this game, but rest assured when I tell you it will be the 3DS remake, not this meh version. Anyways, yeah. Of course, I don't have any gameplay footage of the original Dragon Quest VIII on PS2. Another game in this original form that's just meh, in my opinion. Disagree if you will, and a lot of people I've talked to on Dragon Quest streams will definitely very vehemently disagree. Very strongly, I'm quite sure, if they heard me saying this. Oh well, again, like I just said, you're right to your opinion, but in my opinion, the original of Dragon Quest 1 on the PS1 and the original Dragon Quest 8 on the PS2, the original Dragon Quest 7, the originals of these two games are so meh, it's not even worth talking about. Give me the 3DS remakes of both of them any day. And yes, that's probably my nostalgia of the fact that those were the first two versions of the game that I had played. But still, regardless of the rhyme or reason, in my opinion, the remakes are better. I'm sorry. I mean, I know. One of the major arguments in favor of the originals over the 3DS is the compressed audio. Well, how to say this respectfully? Boo hoo hoo. Okay, so that ain't very respectfully, but don't care. I mean, come on, you're talking to a person who for the longest time would turn the sound down on his TV and put on whatever rock album I was into at that point in time and having that be the music for my playthrough. What the F do I care about video game music? I mean, I know it's a fine thing to say while I'm listening to it as I talk now, but I mean, like I'm going to rate a game better because it has better music. Not me. Like for the longest time, whenever I'd play the first Final Fantasy game, the music would be the Slaughter album, Stick It To Ya. Mad About You, Up All Night, Fly to the Angels, Burning Bridges. That would be the music for Final Fantasy, not what music the developers put in there. Are you kidding me? Or when I would play the first Dragon Warrior game, I wasn't listening to the music the developers put in there. I was listening to the fourth Keel album. Somebody's Waiting, Cherry Lane, I Said the Wrong Thing to the Right Girl. That was the music for the first Dragon Warrior game, not the music the developers put in there. So now you expect me to actually rate a game better because it has better audio? Surely you jest. I mean, not me. You can do that if you want, I guess, but... And again, I probably shouldn't say it that way as I make myself sound like an asshole saying it that way, but I mean, seriously though, the point that I'm trying to make here is that I don't give two hoots about this soundtrack quality. The 3DS sounds good enough to me. You know, maybe compressed compared to PS2 standards. You know, I mean, for one thing, we're talking about a major console made by Sony versus a little handheld device that you can fit in your pocket. Gee, I wonder which one is going to have better sound. Besides, again, I'm not trying to sound like an asshole, and please forgive me if I come off sounding as such. It's not my intention. But yeah, again, point being, the audio may be better, but I don't give two hoots. I'll still prefer the 3DS remakes of Dragon Quest 7 and 8 over the PS1 and PS2 originals. Anyways, enough said about that. Oh, it's up there. Of course, released for the Nintendo DS in 2010. Dragon Quest X. Yeah, for the first time since Part 4, basically, 18 years earlier, a Dragon Quest game that I played through when it was relatively still brand new. primarily because it was not only on a Nintendo console and not Sony. I mean, I know that's going to make me sound like a raging Nintendo fanboy, but you know what? That's right, I am. Proud of it, actually. Couldn't be happier. You want to call me a Nintendo fanboy? Thank you. I take that as a compliment. But anyways, also it was on a handheld device, the DS. But anyways, before I move on, and yeah, I meant that by the way. Of course I'm a Nintendo fanboy. It was Nintendo games like Mario and Zelda that revitalized and kept my interest in video games going in the first place. It was Nintendo games like Metroid. Yeah. So of course I'm a Nintendo fanboy. Duh. But that's news because, I mean, look at my playthroughs. Most of them are Nintendo games on Nintendo systems. You know. But anyways, yeah. I mean, the only reason I even bought a Sony PlayStation in the first place was for Final Fantasy VII, a game that would have been on Nintendo had Nintendo not been so obsessed with cartridges and everybody else was going CD, causing Squaresoft to bring Final Fantasy VII to Sony instead. But anyways, yeah. First Dragon Quest game that I played when it was still relatively brand new. Since Part 4, all those years earlier. And of course, it was also at this point that I'd heard about 7 and 8. Obviously, you know, this is Part 9. It was either they'd missed a couple or they were trying to pull a Final Fantasy. You know, 6 is, you know, 4 is 2 and 6 is 3. But I knew that wasn't going to be the case. You know, I knew they weren't going to try that again after how bad that went for Final Fantasy games. So yeah. But since 7 and 8 were both on a Sony system, yeah, I held off on playing them. Wasn't going to buy another Sony system just to play a couple Dragon Quest games. Had they been on the GameCube, or the Wii U by that point, I think it would be, you know, then I might have considered. But since they were on a Sony system, yeah, I'll wait. And again, I know I sound like a raging Nintendo fanboy. You're right, I am. Don't you forget it. Proud of it. I'll be the first to admit it. Very rarely will you ever meet a bigger Nintendo fanboy than me. Nintendo, Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Donkey Kong, Smash Brothers, Kirby, Pokemon. You know, Atlas has made all the Etrian Odyssey games for Nintendo systems so far, anyways. Need I go on? Sony. The only reason I even bought a Sony again was for Final Fantasy VII. A franchise that used to also be all Nintendo until then. But anyway, that point being drilled into the ground by now, moving on. Oh yeah, I was trying to find, there it is. Where I left off in my playthrough of the series, well, at least as of recording it. Yeah, that of course, by the way, currently recording videos for this playthrough and uploading them, so I mean, again, as has been usually the case in these videos, whether it's Zelda or this, or since I've either already done or I'm currently doing playthroughs of this, there's not much more I can add to this right now that I haven't already said. So, of course, oh actually, hold on. Of course, the next game in chronological order was an online game for Japan only, Dragon Quest X, which has never been officially released here, at least not that I know of. I mean, I know there's computer patches where you can play it translated by fans or something to that effect. I don't know exactly how that works. But I've heard there are ways to play it in America, if you don't mind me. But as far as official releases go, no. To this day, it hasn't been officially released here that I'm aware of. So yeah, haven't played the Dragon Quest X yet. So, which brings me to the latest game in the main series so far, 11. Originally released on the Sony PS4 in 2017, then ported to computer, then having a PC version of it later that year or early into the next, before finally ending up on the Switch, where I got a copy of it. You know, a Nintendo system. Okay, there I go with that again. Yeah, you get the idea. Had this not been on the Switch, I probably still wouldn't have it. Because again, I'm not going to buy a Sony system. I mean, why? Why would I want to buy Sony? It's not Nintendo. Okay, yeah, there I go with that. Yeah. Of course, I'm probably not that good at sarcasm, but I am joking with some of this Nintendo fanboy stuff. I mean, it is true, I do prefer Nintendo. They have the better games. I'm not totally oblivious to Sony. They do have some good games too. Just their consoles always cost more. The main reason I prefer Nintendo. But anyways, yeah. As for the Dragon Quest game, again, I don't have any gameplay footage of my own without downloading something off someone's website and then running the risk of them getting pissed off when they find out that I'm using their footage without letting them know. So just soundtrack for this game. I mean, I do have it on my Switch, but I don't have any capture device since I only have the Switch Lite model, and I don't think that's even compatible with capture cards. Which kind of sucks, especially for this game. Because this is a game, like I said in my Zelda video, that to me would be the second best game of this century so far, topped only by Breath of the Wild so far. Granted, we're only 22 years into this century, and I obviously will not be alive to see the end of this century. I'm already 50 now, so yeah. But as of right now, I would... Granted, the game does coddle you a little bit more than I would like, telling you exactly where quest items can be found. But that's modern gaming for you. I mean, if I'm going to hold that against this game, then I might as well not even bother playing any new games ever again. Just relegate myself to the old games where they actually didn't insult your intelligence so badly. Anyways, of course, this, again, I didn't play this game when it first came out. That was on the Sony PlayStation 4, PS4, whatever. And I didn't even play when it first came out on the Switch. And all that thing about it, it came out on the Switch in 2019. Granted, the Switch version had only been out for about a half a year. By spring of 2020, when I bought my first Switch, having found out that Final Fantasy VII was ported to it. Then also buying this game and Breath of the Wild the same day. Yeah. So, relatively just not too long after the game had been released on Switch. About the same amount of time passed from the time this game was released on the Switch to the time I bought my first copy of it, to the time passed between the first Zelda game and my playing it for the first time. So yeah. Anyways, kind of a lopsided video, I'd imagine, by some people's estimation. But for whatever it's worth, that's my thoughts on the main series Dragon Quest games. I mean, I probably should have pointed out earlier that this doesn't cover the side games, Hunters, thinking Monster Hunter. Dragon Quest Monsters, Dragon Quest Heroes, or Dragon Quest Builders, because I haven't played any of those. I can only... Oh, dang it, I did that again. What? Damn you, OBS. What the hell? Dang it, I'm so sorry about that. I didn't even notice. So busy yapping, I didn't even notice that I was getting a black screen. Damn you, OBS. What the hell is your problem lately? It's the second time on this video you've done that. like 10th time on my failed attempt at a Link to the Past playthrough. Anyways, as I was going to say, I'm not going to cover those games if I've never played them. So yeah, the side games are out of the question for this. I mean, later this year, Dragon Quest Treasures comes out on the Switch, making it the first Dragon Quest side game that I'll actually have played. Are you kidding? I'm planning on pre-ordering that thing based on the Dragon Quest XI character here, Eric, and his backstory. So yeah, almost as psyched for that game as I am for Tears of the Kingdom, formerly known as Breath of the Wild 2. Of course, I did say almost, but yeah. Anyways, that ends the Dragon Quest retrospective, and I'm sorry, not once but twice, had the black screen going on for how long before I actually noticed it. Might just redo this entire video, but I'll just have to put in the description to the video if I remember between now and the time I actually upload this. Put something about that in the description to the video that happened. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching. Next will be a retrospective video of my other favorites, or second best. Hard to decide between this one and Final Fantasy, but yeah, the Final Fantasy franchise. My experiences with and memories of the Final Fantasy games as they came out in North America. So, if you've been enjoying these videos, see you for that one. If not, well, then I guess you're not. Anyways, thanks for watching, and see ya.